Here we have the drawing area, and here we have the UML notations for sequence diagrams. And I've also brought the use case scenario in which we want to drive its sequence diagram. So let's start. First, I will create a sequence diagram frame from this notation, and I will call it AUC BRF. Next, we want to draw the diagram, and we can do this in two simple steps. First, we create the objects. Then, we create the interaction between objects in form of messages. Let's first add the objects. How many objects do we have in this use case? An object could be a person, a class in the code, a role, or any other system or entity. We have here 4 objects. Our primary actor, the student. We have the application user interface. We have the login module. And we have the remote backend services that will perform the book search and the book reserve functions. And the number of interacting objects mainly depends on the project architecture. To add the primary actor, I will use the actor notation here. I will call it student. Then I will add the first object that will interact with this actor, which is the user interface. I will add this as a lifeline notation. All objects are represented in lifeline notation. I called it the interface UI. Similarly, I will add the next 2 objects. We have the controller login, and we have the remote services APIs for the books. If you are not sure of how many objects you have or what they are, don't worry. Just start with the first object, which is usually the primary actor who initiates the first interaction, and then go from there and keep building up and adding objects as you go, so that your interactions flows smoothly from left to right. Now let's model the first interaction in the use case. The student enters email and password. I will use the message notation to represent an interaction. I will call it enter email and password. Do we expect a response from this interaction from the user interface? No, we don't. So we will go to the next interaction. The student taps login. We will increase this time period, and we will create another message to model the login interaction. I will call it tap login. Then what happened next? I will increase the lifeline periods to have more room for messages. Then the user interface object will send a request to the controller login object to validate the login. We will model this request as a message. Please note that this is a timeline. You cannot put it here. You cannot put it here. You would want to place the next interaction after the previous one. So the best place is right here. I will call it validate login email password. Do we expect a response from this object to that object? Yes, actually we expect a response. Let's first increase the period of this interaction. And we will have to increase this as well. Now the controller login object will respond back to the interface UI. We will model this interaction by a reply message. Which is a dotted line. I will call it login validated. After the login is validated, the student actor will interact again with the user interface, but this time to enter the book name to make a search. So similarly, I will create 2 requests. And similarly, the user interface module will send a request to the backend API services, which is the 3rd object here, and receives the response back with the list of books. So the interface sends a search request to the remote API, and the remote API replies with the book search to the interface. Now what's next? Now the students have the list of the books, and he has to make a selection of the book of interest, then make a reservation of this book. We will model these 2 interactions as requests from the student actor to the interface. Now the interface UI wants to communicate with the backend API and want to send a request to this object to reserve a book for this specific student. As usual, we will model this interaction as a message from the interface object to the remote API services object. Do we expect a reply? Actually, yes. The application responds to the student. So we will model this as a reply message from this server to the interface. I will call the message and the reply, request book reserve, and show a successful message. And finally, the students receives this successful message, which concludes the sequence diagram for this use case.